get started?
Sure.
So today we are here with,
Franklin Keels,
and how old are you, Mr. Keels?
76 years old.
Wonderful. And let's start with your early years. Tell me about your childhood. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Logan, Hocking County, Ohio, in 1949, August 49. And we lived in a company-owned village named Haydenville, Ohio. And we lived on a section of the houses called Red Row. It was the only section they would allow us to live in. So we lived there until 1957. And then we moved to Lancaster, Ohio, where I spent most of my time and graduated high school in 1968.
And how would you describe your childhood?
It wasn't rough or anything like that, but it was definitely different. I was all over town. I didn't have much direction on anything like that. It was just get up in the morning in the summertime and just take off. And the parents probably didn't have any idea where it was or who I was with or anything. But childhood wasn't bad. I mean, you had to make it for yourself, but other than that, it was okay.
Do you have any memories that stick out to you from your early years?
I think just the freedom of being able to do what you wanted to do without anybody saying no. It might sound strange, but we didn't have much direction. Dad worked, mom worked, and we were basically on our own.
And what did your parents do?
My mother cleaned houses, and my dad worked for Rayovac Battery Corporation. And then he moved to another job as a janitor at the high schools and grade schools. And then he retired.
Do you have fond memories of your parents?
I have memories. I don't have fond memories. I didn't have any, the affection wasn't there. Dad never hugged me. Mom never hugged me. That's why I make it a point now to, when I had sons, to let them know that we love them and we give hugs and kisses and stuff like that, and make sure we're in contact with them frequently.
Gotcha. That's great. What's something that your parents or maybe even your grandparents taught you at a young age that you kind of carried that with you throughout your whole life?
My grandmother was a good person to listen to. She had a lot of knowledge. And her biggest thing was not to look above, beyond the person that you meet. You always meet somebody that's a stranger at first, but they can become friends and stuff like that. Don't judge people by their color or their height or what they're wearing or anything like that. Be an open-minded person when you meet somebody. I never meet anybody anyway to this day that I see that they may have a brace on their leg or one arm shorter than the other. I never see that first.
That's great. So you mentioned that you don't really have fond memories of your parents. Did you have a hero growing up?
It was my Uncle Joe. I've got more photographs from my Uncle Joe, who was 14 at the time I was born, and he kind of guided me along in the good and the bad, stuff like that. But no, that was a sad day when he passed, and I cried. But my parents passed away, and the strange thing is I didn't shed any tears.
Okay. So Uncle Joe was kind of your confidant and
Yes.
Guide, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, great. What did Uncle Joe do?
He worked at Rayovac Corporation also, and he I think he told me he worked down in where the carbon was, and he always came home dirty and things like that. But he didn't mind it. He says it's a good job.
So was Rayovac a big employer in your town?
It was yes, it was a big employer. It wasn't definitely the biggest. Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation was the biggest.
Okay.
It had like 3 plants in town, and a couple satellites, but they were scattered all over the United States also.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned that you have 2 sons.
Yes.
Is it 2 sons? Is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
How did you meet your significant other?
Her sister married one of my cousins, and they moved back to Lancaster. And when the sister got sick, my wife came to Lancaster to babysit the kids, take care of the kids. And when I was home on leave from the military, I met her once, then twice. And when I got out of the military, a good friend of ours said that I should go over and knock on the door. And I was really not interested, but they said, I bet you $10 you're scared to go over and talk to her. So I took the $10, went over and met her, and took her to the movies. And that was in June of 71. And April of 72, we were married.
Oh, that's a great story. Uh, you said that you were in the military. What branch?
I was in the Army.
Okay. For what years?
68, June of 68 to June of 71.
Okay. Thank you for your service. How did that influence and shape you?
Um, I think I look at things differently when it comes down to uh, things that may make somebody downhearted or hurt or uh, confused. I kind of sit back looking at the situation and then go from there.
Okay.
I don't jump into decisions that some people do. I take my time and think about it, and then I guess I execute whatever I want to do.
Okay.
But I think it's taught me to understand that life is precious because you only get one, and if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, you're going to be in a bad situation.
Absolutely. How long were you married?
We've been married now 53 years.
Congratulations. What would you say is the secret or the recipe to a long-lasting, healthy relationship?
I think listen to each other. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to have trust. Um, it's easy to do. It's just one of those things that some people don't. Both our children have been married. One's been married 3 times. The other's been married twice. So I don't know where that went, but I guess it's one of the things you can't control, and you don't want to give too much advice because then you make an enemy.
Fair enough. What lessons, I'm a father of 2 sons also. I feel like a lot of times I wind up learning just as much as a lesson about something as they do in certain situations. Was there ever a time or situation or anything like that where you felt like you learned something very valuable from being a parent?
Well, I've got one son that's like me. The oldest is more like me. We spend. And the youngest son, he's like his mother. He's pretty tight with money. I shouldn't say tight. He's very um, thrift-minded.
Frugal, maybe?
Yes, he knows how to sit on money and use it wisely, and that's good.
Okay, that's great. Um, this is a broad question, but what does the word family mean to you?
Family is like having a private club, a social event. It's a grouping of people that can speak freely to each other and uh, take advice from somebody that's maybe 10 years old and go with it. It's not something you override somebody just for the fact that you're the parent. It's a give and take. You got to listen to what they say as much as what you say. And sometimes you can sit there and say something, and after you say it, it's like, well, I shouldn't have said it quite that way.
Gotcha. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say save more money. Don't be a fool and uh, be, I guess, one-sided or negative all the time. If it wasn't for a teacher, or not teacher, he was assistant principal in high school, if I didn't have him to say, what are you doing in the office? And I told him I was going to quit school and go to the Army in 10th grade. And he put his hand on my shoulder and took me to his office and said, we need to talk. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have regretted a lot of things. And he's the one that bailed me out. because about once a week I'd see him. He'd ask me how are things going, and I'd say okay. And made it through the last 2 years. I graduated. The day I got my diploma, he was the last person in line, and he sat there and shook my hand and said, "Now go do what you want to do." And that's good. Don't give up on something that you regret later. And that's one thing I'm glad that I did was finish high school.
If it's not too personal, what was the content of that conversation?
Well, the content of the conversation was the simple fact that if you don't get this diploma, which don't mean much, but if you don't have it, you probably can't even flip burgers. And he had a little statue of a policeman from the Bahamas. He was a black policeman and stuff, and he says, well, what do you think you want to do in life? And I said, I was going to be in the Army. I was going to be a military policeman. He says, well, if you want to be, you want to do something and you want to look like this gentleman here and have respect and give respect to other people, he says, you better finish school, because if you don't, you're not going to, all your dreams or your thoughts are going to be for nothing.
What was going on in your life at that time that made it maybe questionable that you would graduate?
Well, there's nothing. My parents didn't graduate high school. Most of the people in their era, I don't think, graduated, and it didn't seem to bother them. I didn't realize at the time they didn't have good jobs, and um, I was just going to just quit and go to the Army, and figured that was the best thing for me. But I'm glad I didn't, because it made things much better uh, graduating, and I didn't have to take jobs that they took because they had to take them.
Gotcha. Um, but you did eventually go into the military.
Yes.
Talk to us about that time from when you graduated to when you decided to go ahead and join.
Well, when I graduated on I believe it was the 7th of June. It was a Friday, I think. And the 10th of June, I was in the Army.
Okay.
I didn't waste any time, because I knew if I wasted time, I'd be stuck. I'd do something stupid, and I'd be stuck in a place I didn't want to be. But I think that, all through the 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I kept thinking about uh, getting out of school, joining the Army, and going with life. Because at that time, Vietnam was going on. You had choices. Choices weren't very good. It's either you stay in school, graduate, quit school and take a chance of being drafted, or graduate and take a chance of being drafted, or go to college, or get a job, get married, and just hope they don't see you.
Mm.
Well, I found out many years later that my number was 198. It was never called in the draft. So I could have stayed out of the military, but I think the military was the best place for me.
What did you do in the Army?
I was a military policeman the whole time I was in.
Wonderful. And any memories stick out to you from that time?
Well, I did 2 tours of Vietnam. I did 2 separate tours. I went over in '68, November '68. I came back and they put me in Fort Carson, Colorado, which is a beautiful place, but I just couldn't stand stateside. I had a very hard time stateside. Don't know why. I thought a lot about the people that I left behind in Vietnam in September of '70. I called my congressman back home, it was Clarence Miller, and told him what my problem was. And he said, what do you want me to do? And I said, I'd like to go back to Vietnam. And he says, what do I tell your parents if you get killed over there? And I said, well, I've got faith I won't. And I went back and pulled another tour, which was unheard of, because there's like 200, 300 people in our company at different times. There's only 2 of us. If you look at the roster, which is published someplace, my name doesn't appear until the last page with another guy. We're the only 2 people that did a tour, left for a period of time, and came back.
Wow.
People stayed longer than we had, but because they kept extending, stayed in country. But we were the only 2 that left and came, went back over.
So being in an active duty situation, did you have any situations that kind of stuck with you after you left service?
Not really, nothing negative anyway. I almost got called up for um, Kent State. We were on standby for that. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what it was about.
So
We found out later, though.
for our viewers that might not know what Kent State is, please give us more details.
Kent State was um, a situation happened on a college campus at Kent State in Ohio. It was a protest against the war in Vietnam, and people were protesting, and they sent the National Guard in, and the National Guard got spooked, I guess, or something like that. They shot 4 or 5 people and killed them. It's a good thing they didn't send us because most of us were Vietnam veterans, and I think we would have handled things probably more negative. A sad case anyway. It went.
Gotcha. Um,
We didn't go.
Fair enough. Yeah. Uh, so Kent State, is part of a volatile time in history. Um, some could argue that we're also in a current volatile time in history. Uh, what what have you learned living through dynamic times? What advice would you give to people that maybe feel like they're having a tough time or struggling or questioning, their ability to exist nowadays? You've lived through a lot. What advice would you give to that person?
I think the main thing is to listen, watch the news at least once a day. Don't get caught up in the moment. Don't get caught up in what's going on. Don't feel that you got to rush across town or go someplace else in the United States and make your points known. Or your my advice would be to, from a distance, pay attention to what's going on, but don't get involved too much unless it comes to you. A lot of people are making mistakes these days, and they're doing things that don't make sense. Um, I don't agree with everybody. I don't agree with a lot of people, but I'm not going to go punch them in the nose or something like that,
Sure.
or write them a dirty note or something. No, I think you should pay attention to what's going on. Don't be in a hurry to judgment. Um, you can make your thoughts known, but don't make any negative thoughts. Uh,
Sure. How would you say the world has changed since you were a much younger person?
I think the world didn't pay too much attention. Of course, the Kennedy assassination, we went through that. Martin Luther King and things like that were pretty serious happenings. Robert Kennedy. And it was sad times, but not as bad as today. Today, it seems like that the government's got their fingers in too much. Freedom of speech, Social Security, people's medical things like that are gone away that they had at one time, and now all of a sudden it's going to be phased out or just reduced. And a lot of people are worried to death, and prices of food has skyrocketed, and all these tariffs and things. I think the difference is, I think it is when you're younger, you don't pay that much attention to the news, except if something serious happens. But now, older, a lot of things can affect you.
To shift gears a little bit, um, what do you think it means to live a good life?
I think a good life is, if you got good relationship with family, your wife, your friends, you've got a decent job, you can say hello to people on the street without people looking at you like they are afraid that you're going to do something or beg them for money or something. I don't look down on people that beg for money. That's their work or their life. I mean, that's what they do. It's just not for me. But I think just the fact is that you can look at life as a gift and do the best you can with it.
Great. Um, so, related to that, what are some of the most important principles, values, things that you hold close and dear to you that have helped guide you through life?
think pay attention to what people say to you and what you say back to them. Don't judge things just because they're different. You might have a thought about it, say, well, that's kind of different, but uh, don't say it to that person like, I think you're crazy for doing it this way. Uh, Treat people with respect. Look at people with an open mind. I meet people on the street, and I may not ever see them again, but I kind of worry about what they think of me. Do they think I was a jerk, or it was kind of a different person or something? You may not ever see them again in your life, but try to be open and be friendly, be neutral. Friendly and courteous to all, no matter what they look like or what they sound like, or if they're kind of gruff or they say something negative to you. Don't say something negative back. Just say, hey, have a good day or something like that, and walk on.
Life is more important, right?
Yes.
Um, you've seen many changes in your years, both cultural and from like technology standpoint. What would, in your opinion, what is kind of been the biggest changes in your years that you've seen from, let's say, from a technology standpoint, and how the world has changed and pivoted when that technology came into existence? When you were born, no one had a computer, and computers were the
No.
size of rooms. Now everybody has a computer and the size of laptops and things like that. So along that strain, what is kind of the biggest changes you've seen in the world as it relates to technology?
The communication. Communication is very important. You can send an email to somebody, a text to somebody, or just a note to somebody with a question, asking a question about something, or something you heard, a family member sick or passed away. You can pass that on in a matter of seconds. Um, it just it's just extremely fast. I can call our son in Germany for free and speak to him as long as I want to talk to him, and as long as I watch the time, what time it is here versus there. But the communications, I think, is a big thing. I mean, you don't have to have somebody um, tell you something and you sit there and wonder if that was true or not. Within a few minutes, you can find out that it is true or it isn't true. But I think communication and also medical, I think, has come a long way. When I was a kid, polio was the big killer, and tuberculosis. And nowadays, you don't hear anything about them. You might hear about them, but it's always in some small country or something like that that doesn't have the ability to have the medications that we have.
Right. And with the technology and the kind of the instantaneous nature of it now, do you feel like that's been a good thing for humanity or not a good thing for humanity?
It's good. It's good in one way, the fact that you can find facts and you can read news and you can get messages immediately. But I think it's negative in the way that when I was young, I could go outside with a stick and a rock and be happy. Nowadays, kids don't go outside much. They sit inside playing their game systems and things like that. And they don't have any skills when it comes down to oh, I got mud on my shoes. What do? No, you just wash it off and go on about your business. But nowadays, you'll walk in the house and there's a pair of muddy shoes laying on the floor, and you're thinking, it takes a few seconds to knock that off. But I think I think the common things have gone away. Um, I can go to a field now and spend hours walking in a field, just looking down, finding things on the ground, stuff like that. And kids, I think they don't know what it's like to walk in a creek or something on a hot day. They sit inside in the air conditioning and, like I said, don't leave the house.
Gotcha. Creature comfort, so to speak.
Yes.
Um, it's 76, and you look back on your course of your life. What are the things that you're most proud of?
I think most proud of that I graduated high school. I've got a good marriage, got a good wife, great wife. I've got children that take care of their children the way they should. I think I've instilled upon them, or we have instilled upon them, that take care of your families, and they have. And that's one thing. It makes us very proud that they have taken care of their children. Their children have gone on through school. Now we've got a great grandson, and all we had before was granddaughters. But you see your families doing well and progressing in life. And being 76 years old, I feel good about it. I got a few rusty spots and things, but I'm not allowing that to stop me. And it's not your choice. It's just one of the things that you get. It just comes to you. Either you do or you don't. I'm just not going to sit on the couch and do nothing.
What do you do these days? How do you fill your time?
Well, there's always lawn, cutting grass and stuff,
Okay,
and taking care of the house. But I like to collect coins, and I like photography.
great.
I've got thousands of photographs, and some of the photographs have been kind of comical when you take them. And then when another family member sees the photograph, they say, "Hey, I'd like to have a copy of that." And that kind of makes you feel good, the simple fact that somebody else thinks that your photograph is a good one, and they want to put it on their wall.
So, do you have a favorite subject or anything that you like to photograph?
Just nature.
Okay.
I like to take pictures, see if I get pictures of the hummingbirds, especially when they're kind of hovering in place, and see if you can get the wings or something like that. That's good. Or you'll see an eagle, take photographs, or anything really. But family members are usually the funniest because I've taken a picture of the mother-in-law. We were down at the Royal Gorge, and they said, "Don't feed the animals." My mother-in-law is feeding a deer. I told her I was going to take a photograph of it and give it to the ranger. And that's one of the photographs that's been big in the family. A lot of people see it. A lot of people want it. And at the time, I was just being funny, but I didn't know it was going to be a good photograph.
That's great. Kind of related to this, and when we were speaking off camera, um, we were talking about how often family history is lost. Talk to me about how your family history has been passed down or hasn't, and how that's affected you.
Well, the family history on one side hasn't been passed down. We just know that the Carlisle branch of the family were in Maryland, I believe, and they did plastering in homes and buildings of different sizes. But that's about all we know. We don't know anything. Then on the Keel side of the family, we found out that we are multiracial people. We've got Native American, white, and black all mixed in. We're from a small town in southern Ohio called Black Fork. You can look it up on YouTube and find interviews there where people from Black Fork have expressed their lives and how it was and things. And the community was, I guess, three brothers. Way I hear it, three brothers came, and a bunch of families came to one spot in southern Ohio and just stopped, and they made a community. They had a hospital, and they had a theater, and they had a general store, high school, and grade school. All that's gone now because we couldn't get work down there. So everybody moved north, farther north into Detroit and northern Ohio to get jobs and stuff because they just wouldn't hire people of color down in that area. And I was fortunate not to be born down there. And my father was born there, and all his brothers and sisters born there. And all of them had moved, like I said, migrated north, farther north into Ohio and Detroit. But we go down there every now and then, and just usually go to the church, which is the oldest black church in the state of Ohio. It's still holding services. It's Union Baptist Church. And, you kind of go down and look at the gravestones and things and see your grandparents' graves and things like that.
How much do you know about your family beyond, let's say, your immediate parents?
Not much. Not much. Like I said before, my grandfather on Keel's side, I didn't know. I kind of wondered, he was born 1898. You kind of wonder what he did. Was he drafted in the military service or something like that. We didn't know until probably about 6 months ago. I found out that he was in the Army. He was drafted into the Army in 1917 or 18. He made it through basic training or part of it, and he was let go because the war was over. They didn't need him, but it was never mentioned. And my grandfather on that side was, he had a strange job. He was a foreman. And at that time, it was kind of strange to see a person of color be in charge of a group of whites. And he was. He was very revered. I mean, people would come to him for uh, guidance and things like that. You know, he'd come during the night. You know, they had an argument with their wife or something, and he would listen to what they had to say and give them advice. And it didn't go beyond him. And I've tried to keep that myself. You know, that if people ask me a question, it's kind of one way or another, you wouldn't want it out. I don't. I don't know what quality that is, but it seems like I've gotten that quality.
So I also have two sons who are multiracial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you'd be willing to share your experience being a person of color in America over the past 76 years.
Things have gotten much better. I think between 75 and maybe 90, 20 years in there, something like that. I think things are good. I think they're kind of slipping back though, because it's like words that hurt at one time. Now people use them as a term of endearment or something, which I don't see. I'm not a person to say those things. There's certain words that I've taught my sons that should never be said, and they're pretty good about that. We're a mixed bunch of people, and we don't have the right to say something to somebody that we don't like said to us. And being biracial, I think, is a good thing. I think you see from both sides of the fence, and younger people don't know what it's like to be told the job's been filled, even though it had not been filled, or no, we don't rent the colored or something like that. I've heard that many times, and I don't hold that against people. I've had people come up to me and uh, apologize, but I've told them, I said, you know, that was in the past. Let's move forward, and I don't hold any grudges. I think it makes you a soured person to sit there and hold a grudge for 50, 60 years, and you don't like this person because you have to think about why is it I don't like them. There's people I don't like not because of their race or their color or something like that. They were just that person that, you know, when I was growing up just treated me mean or something.
Fair enough. Along the same lines, talk to us about forgiveness and what forgiveness has meant to you in your life.
I think forgiveness is good because I think it kind of releases the burden of thinking how simple that was. Um, just to say I'm sorry, you may not accept it wholly, but the fact that maybe I offended you someplace years ago, and I go up and knock on your door, and they open the door and look and say, "Oh, it's Frank. What can I do for you?" And say, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And take them aside and just say, "You know, I apologize for what I said years ago. You know, it might have been 40, 50 years ago, but I'm truly sorry for saying what I said." And get that off your mind and out of your heart, and don't be keeping something that could be just so simple that you can say I'm sorry. Now you might feel better. The other person might be puzzled and have to think about what was said, but still, I think it's something you should say.
That's great. Um, what do you hope that the generations that come after you, both your sons, your grandsons, and so on, um, what do you want them to remember about Frank?
I would think that, they could say dad did try to do everything. He may not have been successful in doing everything, but he tried. I'd like my grandchildren to remember that grandpa wasn't one of those people that came in the house, sat on the couch, fell asleep. He was the guy that would take us someplace, do something with us, take us to a creek, and you don't understand why that he wanted to take us to a creek, but found out it was so relaxing to walk in a creek and look at the nature and things like that. And my sons would say that, dad would do anything. There was nothing, then my nephews and things would look and say, that's Uncle Frank. If anybody's going to do it, Uncle Frank would do it. I don't want people at my funeral or whatever to come up to the front and if they had something to say about me. If I was a jerk, I want them to say I was a jerk. If I was a bad person, say I was a bad person. If there was a good memory, say that also. I just don't want people to say, I remember my grandfather, but he was a nasty person. And that would not mean anything to me if I was gone, but it means something to me that sit there and think that, that at least they'll have decent memories of me, you know.
That's great. Do you have any funny stories from your past that stick out to you?
Well, when I was in Vietnam doing my second tour, I don't know what happened, but evidently I did something to somebody that was funny. And they said, we'll get you back. So one day I was getting off work and I was walking up to the company area and I was carrying all my gear, my helmet, my rifle and all that stuff, and I had to go to the bathroom. So we had latrines all over the place. They were nothing more than a little shed with maybe two holer, and underneath they would have trays for you to drop your stuff in. And in the morning you'd have to pull those trays out and burn it. But I went in the bathroom or in the toilet. I'm sitting there getting ready to get down. I got a newspaper in my hand. I'm going to do some reading. And all of a sudden I hear the back trays open, and the doors open, and someone's pulling the trays out. And we'd always say, if you're in the bathroom, you'd always say, I'm working in here. And they said, oh, okay. And they kept taking the trays out. Well, you can't do anything if taking the trays out. So then I heard someone say, hey, Keels. I said, yeah. He says, hold on. I'm thinking, what's going on now? So I'm trying to get my clothes on. And I feel the toilet tip over backwards. And then lay it on its side. And there's nothing in the toilet that's going to pour out or anything like that. But I'm on the side. And all of a sudden I feel the thing dragging. And they were laughing. And they evidently had the toilet with rope around it pulling me someplace. And when it stopped, I hear everybody laughing. They get in the Jeep and they take off. Well, I finally get the rope open. I hear all these horns blowing and stuff. And I open up the door. Here I am in the middle of this road with all these Jeeps and trucks and everything blowing their horns and laughing at me and things. And it was funny. I think about it now, it was just funny.
That's awesome.
But I had to buy beer for everybody that night.
That's great. If you had to pick a favorite decade from the time that you were born, what decade do you think you would choose?
I would say the 50s and 60s.
Tell us why, please.
There was respect. There was respect of neighbors. The neighbor told you to stay off his grass. He meant it. And you would stay off his grass. Good example of that was we had a man that lived down the street from us. And when I was probably about 6 or 7, he told me to stay off his grass. And I did. When I saw him probably 30, 40 years later, I was walking down the sidewalk and someone said, stay off my grass. I looked over and there he was, just pointing a finger at me. And I just went back in my mind. I said, you know what? That, it's respect, but he was just kidding it the second time, but the
Yeah.
first time he meant it. But and also the styles. The styles were good. You know, when you went into town, you dressed up and put on a hat, and nice coat, maybe a tie, and you went in, did your business, whatever, and came back. Stores were closed at 5. Closed, you know, they were closed on the weekends. You couldn't buy anything on the weekends. It was kind of, now you think about it, it'd be kind of rough, but you couldn't buy anything on weekends. That's all there was to it. Um, I also think the music was about a lot of about respect and love and fun stuff and everything. You didn't hear anything about people calling other people names or how I beat up on this woman and called her names and things. I think it was just a better time for a little bit of everything. Things have gotten better in some ways, but other ways I think we've gone backwards. And I think the 50s and 60s were probably some of the better times. Civil rights movement and everything like that had to happen. Uh, but beyond that, I think that it was just a better time.
Fair enough. I like that. Um, we're winding down now. And so I want to try to capture some advice that you might have for future generations and people who might be watching this. So if you could pass on a lesson or lessons, things that you find important for to live a good life, so to speak, what kind of lessons would you pass on to people?
I think to the younger generations, I think finish high school. When you're about the 11th grade, think about what you want to do when you graduate. Either go to a tech school, go to college, go to the military, do something. Get an idea of what you want to do the day you step out of high school. Because if you step out of high school and give yourself months, years to not do something and you've got a job you don't like and everything like that, you know, that's the reason why I'm thinking 11th grade, you should think about what you want to do. If you want to go to school to be a nurse or something like that, or in health or in technical areas, go to school. Go as soon as you can from high school. That way, you don't give yourself any time to make a mistake someplace and regret it. And also, when you get a job, be the best you can be in that job. Don't do the job and complain every day and everything like that. You're always going to have that one boss. It's always going to be in your back pocket for something, something you didn't do or whatever. But just try to be as happy as you can be. Have a good family. Treat your wife decent. Your husband, decent, and talk about things. My wife is a financial advisor of the family. I don't handle money. She handles the money. Some people don't like that, but that's just the way it is with me. And only that, just try to be happy as you can be. Just throw your hand up. You might be going down the highway and someone throws their hand up and waves. Just wave back. And I know that I've had people say, "Do you know who that was?" I said, "No, I have no idea who that was." It's just one of those gestures. I think your life would be much better.
Excellent. My final question for you today is, and this is kind of throwing back to what we were talking about earlier, is sometimes common sense is not so common anymore. What's a bit of or common sense, I should say, rather, common sense. What's a bit of common sense that you feel like has been lost over the years?
Signage is number one. I work for the transit company here in town, Denver. And common sense is read the signs, listen to the warning signs and the sounds and everything. We got signs everywhere on that rail that says uh, caution, tracks may be active at any time. Look both ways. Listen to the horns. And we have people at least a couple times a week to get uh, scared because they didn't pay attention to what's going on around them. They'll walk out in front of a train, the train hits the horn. Now, when they're leaving, they're not leaving so fast. They can stop pretty easy. They're coming in at 15, 20 miles an hour. Now, you walk out in front of that train, it'd be the last time you walk out in front of anything. I think I think that people don't listen, they don't read, and they don't watch out their surroundings today in this day and age. Not everybody's looking out for the other person. It's just sort of like uh, if I saw your children doing something that I think that their parents wouldn't like, I'll say, "Hey, I wouldn't do that. I don't think your dad and mom want you doing that." And they might tell me which way to go,
Mm.
but at least I can say I tried. And I think that's the biggest thing is try. If you don't try, you can't say you can't do it. My father was one of those people that said I can't do it. I learned from my uncles that they would show me once or twice, and then maybe the next time I need help, they'd help me. But to this day, I know how to do some things that other people won't even try. You know, you got to try before you can say you can't.
I like that. One last question, just for a fun one. What's the favorite thing that your wife makes for you to eat?
Food,
Just food in
just
general?
food.
Okay.
She's a good cook. Never had a bad meal.
That's great.
It just I cook. There's some things I cook, some things she cooks.
Cool.
She doesn't do a good soup, she thinks, and I do the soups. I do the stews. Um, must be good because people like them.
Fair enough.
But no, it's just food, and just the fact is that you have an argument, you should never go to bed alone. Not one of these couch things. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. No, I've never slept on the couch. You know, I might have been sick and slept on the couch or something, but I've never had an argument or mad at each other and not go to bed with her.
Excellent. Excellent. Is there anything else that you would like to share with your viewers?
No, I just hope you have a long life, good life, free of illnesses and things like that. And before you act, think about it, look at it, and then make your decisions. And don't make decisions one sided. If you got a partner, a wife, husband, talk it over first. Don't make the decision and be one of those things. I didn't know we did that. You know, something happens and the other person can't do anything for you because you signed off on something.
Gotcha. Well, Frank, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your stories. And we wish you many years ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to do this.